Hello everyone, my name is Keely. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of May, and I had a fantastic reading month. I read the most I've ever read when it comes to page count. So I ended up reading 17 books, which resulted in 6,024 pages, and my average rating was 3.76, so not too bad. If you don't know, I participated and co-hosted Escape the Readathon. I was one of the game masters, and Escape the Readathon is a very creative readathon that was created by Lexi from Books with Lexi, and I did vlog most of the books that I read, so I won't be going too in-depth with those, but I will leave the vlogs linked down below so that you can go and watch them if you are interested in real-time thoughts. So as always, I'm going to talk about these books in the order that I read them in. So these first 5 books I read in a vlog all about reading backlist thrillers, and the first book I read was The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. So in this book, we have 2 different timelines, one from 1977 and one from 2017. So in 2017, we follow this woman named Shay, and she works as a receptionist in a doctor's office, but on the side, she is a true crime blogger. And back in 1977, in her small town, there were these infamous lady killer murders, and she knows who did it. The woman was kind of let go, so everyone thinks that this woman named Beth committed these murders. And now decades have passed, and one day at the doctor, Shay is working away at the computer, and in walks this woman. And Shay is like, that woman looks familiar. How do I know her? And when she hears her name, she realizes that this is Beth, the lady killer. So Shay takes the opportunity and she asks Beth if she can interview her for her true crime blog. And normally Beth doesn't talk to people, but in this case, Beth accepts and says yes, she'll talk to her and tell her story. So this book was really fun and interesting to read. I really loved both timelines, but I will say there is an element in this book that I could have done without. I don't think it really added anything to the story for me. I enjoyed more of the true crime aspects. I am also a sucker for cold cases, so the fact that this book was kind of investigating that, and if Beth was really the lady killer, and why she killed these men, and what was going on, and why decades later she's like now free and just living out in the wild. But that added element, I was like, I really don't see the point in it, really don't love it, but it didn't hinder my enjoyment that much. I still flew through this. I could not put it down. I was so invested in what was happening in both timelines, and I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read Truly Madly Deadly by Hannah Jane, and this is a young adult thriller, and in this book, we follow this girl who is a straight-A student. She is dating the quarterback on the football team. Everything's going well until her boyfriend Kevin is killed in a car wreck, and the next day at school, she gets a note in her locker that says, "You're welcome." And so it seems like she might potentially have a stalker who is trying to clean up her messes, trying to figure out how to protect her, and it goes off from there. So I will say, I don't remember this one that well. I know that I had a great time reading it and I had so much fun. I couldn't put it down. I thought it was very thrilling and fast-paced, but it's one of those things that's fun in the meantime and then I forget about it later on. So looking back on my Goodreads review, I remember some of the things that frustrated me about this book, and that was the fact that I liked the main character, but nobody listened to her. This entire book, she knew she had a stalker and somebody was out there killing people to help her, and she went to adults, she went to police officers, and nobody listened. Like, she clearly thinks something is going on, and it is, and nobody's willing to help her, so all these people are dying. Like, just listen to her. I don't care if she's a child. Listen to her, and that really frustrated me, but I still did have fun and I really wanted to know what happened, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Next, I read Creep by Jennifer Hillier, and in this one we follow a professor named Dr. Sheila Tao, and she is having an affair with her teaching assistant. And one day she calls it off because she is getting engaged, and the TA is not happy with this, and he decides if he can't have her, nobody can. So another stalker thriller, and I loved this one. I could not put it down. This one was also a little bit longer, and I still sped through it and read it in like a day because I was so obsessed with it. The writing was like popcorn. I was just eating it up. I was thrilled to no end, and it also gets a little bit dark, which I really, really love. I will say, Dr. Sheila Tao, maybe don't cheat, but also the TA is kind of psychotic, and it was interesting to see his mind kind of spiral. There were also some great reveals in this, and this book does end on quite the cliffhanger, so I cannot wait to read the sequel. I had such a great time reading Creep that I gave this book 5 stars. I loved it. Next, I read The Hunting Wives by May Cobb, and in this book we follow this woman named Sophie who's really successful in Chicago, but she's kind of bored with her life, so she wants to move to this small town in Texas, and when they move there, she realizes she is still bored. She literally has everything. She is a stay-at-home mom, husband, they are well off, and she's just bored with her life. So she sees this rich woman in town and she becomes obsessed. Like completely obsessed, almost once again, a stalker book, and she wants to be like her. She is borderline like love obsession with her, and this book is unhinged. I really would like you to go watch the vlog simply for this book because I don't know how to explain it, because the whole time I was reading it I was like, I hate this, but I love it. I don't really understand. I just know that I could not put it down. It was so addicting, but I was also reading it and I was like, this is so horrible. I almost felt icky reading this book. There are questionable relationships with high school boys, like women to high school boys. So do with that what you will. Check trigger warnings, because these women are completely unhinged, and it's not even in a good for her way. Not at all. No, we don't like these women. We do not like them at all. And even Sophie herself is like, yeah, she's a walking red flag, but I'm obsessed with her. And I'm like, why? Come on, girl. But I was addicted to reading this book, but I definitely see it has a lot of problems, and so I gave it 3 stars. And the last book I read for that backlist thriller vlog was The Six by Annie Taylor. Now this was pitched to me as Squid Games, so we have these people who are in dire need of help. All of them are pretty much addicts in different areas and aspects, and they are all really struggling. And so when they get offered the chance of a lifetime to go to this retreat for 6 days, and if they complete 6 challenges, they get $60,000 at the end of it. So our main character has a gambling addiction, and her husband doesn't know, so she decides she's gonna go do this, get some money, pay off her debts so that her and her husband and their children can live their lives. So this island, it's on a monastery, which is a really cool setting, but this book was so disappointing because yes, we do see what's happening on the island, but for the most part, we follow the family members back home who are searching for their loved ones. And I found that boring because we already know what happened to their loved ones, and I want to see what is happening on the island. And these challenges, so dull, so boring. These were not thrilling, riveting, exciting challenges at all. I was so bored with them, and this book is pretty like chunky. It's so heavy for no reason, but I gave this one 2 stars because it is so boring. So just save your time and don't read it. The next book I read for a carnival-themed horror vlog, and that is Hide by Kirsten White. So this book is a deadly hide-and-seek competition set on an abandoned amusement park, and that's all you really need to know. Now, this book gets a lot of hate. So many people hate this book for different reasons, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Now, some of the complaints I've seen are that there are too many characters, and for me, each character seemed so different and unique from each other. I had no problem keeping track of who was who. There were even 2 characters that had the same name, which a lot of people hate, but for me those 2 characters were so different that the name didn't even register with me. Some people think that this also reads younger, and I don't quite agree with that. I think that, yes, it could be gorier, but I feel like these characters definitely acted like 20-something-year-olds, and so I didn't have any problems with that. But like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a fun time, nothing too special, but I enjoyed it. Next, I have 2 books that I taught in my English classes. If you don't know, I was a freshman English teacher this year, and so I have 2 different books that I finished at the end of the year with them. So the first book is The Maze Runner by James Dashner. I read this with my regular English class, and we had so much fun reading that. This is, of course, a reread for me. I have read this many, many, many times, and I had so many kids that were like, this is our favorite book that we've ever read. Like ever, and that was just so special to me. I did give this one 4 stars because I love it, but it is not my favorite dystopian. On the other hand, I also read Unwind by Neil Shusterman, and I read this book with my English honors class, and this one is just so great. Once again, a reread for me. I've read it many, many times, and I just loved showing my kids both of these books to show that reading isn't just boring classics. You can have thrilling, fun times as well, and they loved ending the year on this. But Unwind, I gave 5 stars. It is one of my favorites. The next two books I also read for that carnival themed horror vlog. The first one I have is Do Not Disturb 2 by John Athan. Be warned, this is an extreme horror novella. This is about killer clowns who take over Las Vegas, basically. And we are set in one of the resort hotels, and we see destruction and slashing and dicing and eating and all sorts of things I'm not going to describe because I can't. But I really enjoyed this one. I think this is one of my favorite extreme horrors I've read. It is gory, it is bloody. If you cannot handle extreme horror, do not read it. But I give this one 4 stars. And the last one for that vlog was Tastes Like Candy by Ivy Tholen. And this one I've heard great things about. And we follow these high schoolers that are about to be seniors. It is their summer vacation. And every year there's this tradition where the outgoing senior class gives the incoming senior class invitations to a scavenger hunt. And this year's scavenger hunt takes place at night at an amusement festival park carnival thing. And so they go there and slashing starts happening. I did not like this one. I was not thrilled. I was pretty bored throughout it, and I simply did not care what happened to the characters. And at the very beginning, they get high, and so throughout the entire book, they are high, and I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to read about that. I don't like when characters are intoxicated in any way, so that was not fun, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. Next, I read Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter, and I buddy read this book with Keisha from A Book Like You and Hannah from the Teacher's TBR, and we actually did sprints and we Marco Polo'd all of our thoughts, and it was so much fun buddy reading this book. So this book, we follow a young girl. She's in high school, so this is a young adult romance, and her name is Liz, and Liz lost her mom several years ago, and so her and her mom's thing was watching rom-coms. So Liz likes to live her life like she is in a rom-com. She is completely obsessed with him, and she kind of has this rivalry with the boy next door named Wes, and so they are constantly like battling for the parking spot in front of each other's house, which is just so funny. Their banter is amazing. And one day when Liz gets to school, she finds out that her old crush from childhood has moved back into town, and she really wants to date him. So Liz and Wes actually strike up this deal that if Wes helps Liz get Michael to fall in love with her, then Wes can have the parking spot out front of their house. So they kind of start this fake dating thing to help Michael kind of get jealous and want to ask Liz out and see that Liz is actually not the little girl that he used to know, but she's grown up and she's really, really great. And hopefully Liz will get her wish and go to prom with Michael. So you can kind of see how things might get set up. You know, you have fake dating, you have a little rivals to lovers moment here, and this book was so great. I loved this book. I sobbed so many times in this book because it's also about grief. And if you know me, I love grief books. Like, some of the trauma responses she had in here, I have experienced, and it's interesting because if you haven't gone through that trauma of grief, you may not understand why she is acting the way she is. And I even told Keisha and Hannah, I think that she is acting like this because of this reason. And they were like, I didn't even think about that. Like, I love that you brought that perspective into this. And the entire time I'm just reading about Liz, and I can see the lens through grief and learning how to live with that. But it was just so good. I cried. I loved it. I laughed. I seriously laughed. I don't laugh in books, and I laughed in this because the banter was so good. Wes is one of my favorite characters of all time. I just love him, and I think he is just top tier. He's amazing. Okay, there's this quote that I really want to read for you, and I'm gonna try not to cry, but she's talking about her mom, and you know, it's her senior year, she has all these milestones, and she said, I don't know, it's really weird actually. I guess it kind of feels like I'm really losing her this year. All of these milestones are happening, like prom and college applications, and she isn't here for them. So my life is changing and moving forward, and she's being left behind with my childhood. Oh my gosh, I feel that so hard. If you have experienced grief in the way that I have, I know it's different for everyone, that sometimes it's hard to move on because it feels like you're leaving them behind, even though that's not what's happening, but it feels so hard to just move on. I remember when my grief happened, I didn't even want to get contacts because I was like, she knows me with glasses. I can't change. And so I didn't mean to even get into all this, but this is what this book has done to me. I loved it. I'm obsessed with it, and I gave it 5 stars. The The next few books are all from a vlog where I tried to read 200 pages every day for a week, and the first one I finished was If You Change Your Mind by Robbie Weber, and this is a summery young adult romance, and we follow this boy named Harry who is very focused on his future. He has exact plans. He wants to work in the movie industry, and so he has a goal and he's trying to stay focused, which is incredibly difficult because last summer he got his heart completely shattered by Grant, and of course Grant comes back this summer and kind of starts throwing things off the rails and distracting Harry. But there is also another new boy in town named Logan, and so Harry is trying to stay focused, but these boys are causing issues. I did not enjoy this book, and I'm so sad to say because I am friends with Robbie, but I just didn't like it, and I thought it was quite toxic. So when Grant comes back into town, he has this secret, and Harry finds out, and the secret involves Harry's best friend, and Harry just doesn't tell her, and I just feel like that is bad friend vibes, you know, bad friend energy. She should have known the secret and heard it from Harry, but he just held on to it because he was like, oh, she's happy, I don't want to ruin her happiness. And I just felt like that was toxic. I also felt like Harry was leading everybody on in this book, like all of his love interests. There were so many, and he just led everyone on, and it felt horrible, and I just ended up not really caring for him or any of the characters, and I gave it 2 stars. Next, I read The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson, and we follow 18-year-old Belle, and for her entire life, she has just known that her mom simply disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to her. Her body was never found, no evidence of anything. She just disappeared. And so now she's 18, and this Netflix documentary has come in to kind of interview her family about the disappearance of Rachel Price, and that is what they're calling the documentary, until one day, Rachel Price shows back up. It has been 16 years since she disappeared, and she just waltzes back into their life, and people are trying to figure out, where were you? What happened? Were you kidnapped? Like, how are you here? How did you, like, get out of where you were? And it's this whole thing that we have to unravel and also figure out who to trust. Like, because there is a lot of sketchiness going on. There are a lot of twists and turns, and this was a wild ride, and I really, really enjoyed it. I will say it took me a little bit to get into. It was quite slow and dense, and I wasn't reading it very quickly because it just felt like it was taking a little bit longer to read than Holly Jackson's other series. But by the end of it, I was so riveted, and the ending was just so good that I had to give this book 5 stars. The next book I read was Homicide in Hala Hala by Mia P. Manansala. This is book 2 in Tita Rosie's Mystery Kitchen series. It is a cozy mystery series, and the first one, Arsenic and Adobo, I really enjoyed. In this one, we follow the same character, Leela, and she is going to be a judge for a beauty pageant in her town, but this beauty pageant is kind of getting threatening notes, and so the police ask Leela to kind of get on the inside and investigate. This book was so boring. I really did not like it. I loved the first one, like I said. It was so much fun, and this one was just not fun at all. I often forgot it was even a mystery because nothing was happening, nothing was going on, and it's a short book, and I just wanted it to end. I didn't even care for the pageant part, which I thought that I would, but I didn't. I was just completely bored the whole time, and there's also kind of like a love triangle that kind of fizzles out in here, but the romance aspect in here was annoying me because I was like, just get it together already. So I gave this one 2 stars. Next, I read Set on You by Amy Lee, and this follows a curvy fitness influencer named Crystal. One day she is in the gym and she is about to make an Instagram video when this hot guy that's kind of grumpy steals her famed squat rack that she loves to work out at, and she's like, I was literally about to use that, and he goes, well, I'm using it now, so just go use the other one. And so they start kind of creating this gym rivalry that goes on, and they start kind of messing with each other, which I will admit, I did not love that part. I thought it was quite childish, and I wasn't really invested in what was happening with that because I just wanted to move past that. But eventually it does because her grandma is getting married, and when she goes to the engagement party, the grandson of her grandma's fiance is Scott, her gym nemesis, and so they are realizing that they're gonna have to get along because their grandparents are getting married, which is also another little weird thing because they're gonna start a relationship, but their grandparents are getting married, and I know they're not related, but it still kind of feels weird to me. But those are my only two complaints because I really did actually enjoy this, and I thought Crystal's message throughout the entire book was really fun. I loved the tension between them two. I thought it was really cute and I loved the romance, so I gave it 4 stars, and I can't wait to continue with this influencer companion series. Next, I read Everblaze by Shannon Messenger. This is book 3 in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. So because this is book 3, I can't tell you about this one, but in the first one we follow this little girl named Sophie who she has been able to read minds since she was 5 years old, and she realizes that this is pretty weird until one day she's at a museum and this boy comes up to her and says, "I can read minds too. By the way, you're an elf. So let me take you to the elven world and you can figure out your magic and who you really are." And she also has to figure out why she was raised with humans if she was actually an elf. There is a magic school in here. There are so many different magical powers. The elven world is so fascinating, and I am just completely obsessed with the series. This book was so much fun because the action is continuing to pick up and we are finding out more and more things about what is going on behind the scenes, and the way this one ended gave me chills and goosebumps because I know we are about to go on an adventure, and I gave this one 5 stars. And the last book I read in May was The Tower of Nero by Rick Riordan. This is the 5th and final book in the Trials of Apollo series. I cannot believe I finally finished it. So just a quick overview of the entire series. We follow the god Apollo, who is sent down to Earth to live his life as a human as punishment. So he is sent as a 16-year-old boy and he has to go on a quest. Now, this series was so much fun. I really didn't think I would love Apollo, but I quickly fell in love with him, and his character development was just so good. I love going on quests. I love the Greek mythology Rick Riordan writes, and I gave this one 5 stars. So those are all the books that I read in May. Let me know down below your favorite book that you read. If you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave the snake emoji because there's a snake on the Tower of Nero. But that is it for this video. As always, all my social media links will be down below, and I will see you next time. Bye!